we don't need any much introduction to Dr. Gaetano Cavalieri, president of CIBJO, the World Jewelry Confederation. He's a visionary of our industry, and he's going to share with us his vision to the color gemstone industry. So, ladies and gentlemen, take your attention to Dr. Gaetano Cavalieri keynote address for this morning. Thank you very much.
So, good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it has become a routine these days to begin my presentation in the same way, by noting my regret that I am not making my remarks in person, but rather by video, and then expressing my hope that in the near future we will be able to meet face to face. My feelings are sincere, and I genuinely believe that our industry would be better served by events where people interact not only through formal presentation. Knowledge and understanding are considerably enhanced by informal discussions, which are more likely to take place on the sidelines and social setting of a conference or congresses. These have been hard to come by since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, although they are returning in many parts of the world. Still, it has remained a privilege to address an ICA Congress, which I have done several times past, dating back to the first time in Australia almost 20 years ago. Then I could not even conceive of an ICA Congress being conducted in a hybrid manner. But it shows how much our world has changed. I congratulate the organizer of this Congress for their extraordinary effort. The development of Dubai as a dominant economic force is one of a number of transformational changes that our industry and business have experienced over the period that I have served as CIBJO president. Many of these have been driven by technological advances, which shrank and flattened our world, making it easier for us to communicate and interact with one another, but making us more codependent as well. Still, others are being driven by the climate crisis, which is likely to change life for all of us, and most recently by the global pandemic, which forced us to rethink the way we operate and do business. There is a tendency as human beings for us to believe that change is a temporary, that things will return to where they were earlier, when we left more comfortable and in control. But history almost always is linear, meaning that a return to the past is impossible. Success and even survival are entirely reliant on our ability to adapt to change. The growing demand for transparency in our supply chain, if not complete traceability, is a direct result of these changes I refer to. It is not that our consumers have become more ethical or moral, but they definitely have become more aware of events and conditions that exist in the supply chain which previously were hidden from view. The growing body of regulatory systems, some formulated by governments and enforced by law, and others by corporation and industry association, with some those being coerced by economic pressure, did not simply come to be. They were a result of governments and industry reacting to growing public pressure, which itself came about because of the technologically driven information revolution. The Kimberley process in the diamond sector, which in so many respects changed the way we all think and operate throughout the jewelry and gemstone business, was initiated not directly because of the civil war taking place in West and Central Africa, but rather in reaction to media reports about those wars. And let us not forget that these all took place in the late 90s, when the internet was in its infancy. Information travels considerably faster today, and its potential impact is far greater. More than any other sector in the jewelry industry, Colorstone presents a set of more inherent challenges from a regulatory perspective. Upwards of 80% of rough stone production is in the hands of artisanal miners, unlike diamond and precious metals, where major producers own or control most of the output. Furthermore, many of the artisanal miners operate in underdeveloped economies, where the ability to track the movement of merchandise is limited, if it exists at all. The opacity is further clouded in the midstream, where small and medium-sized traders are dominant, and merchandise typically changes hands multiple times before making its way downstream. Objectively, these factors present complicated challenges and not infrequently a lack of clear solution. Some of us may feel that we are being unfairly treated and are misunderstood by a government and corporate culture which is prepared to sacrifice the lives and livelihood of literally millions of artisanal miners and their dependents, and all that to satisfy the demand of what sometimes is an under-informed consumer market. But I have already suggested we in the industry cannot dictate conditions. Furthermore, disregarding consumer demand for more transparent supply chain carries with it a high degree of risk. Acquiescing to those demands also does mean that we have to shut down our businesses. The solution to the dilemma comes with setting reasonable expectations, accepting that while under current conditions, full traceability is not possible, although in most cases transparency is possible in condition that all players in the supply chain can carry out reasonable due diligence. We need to upfront about what is possible when it comes to traceability, with the exception of few high-end brands which buy all raw materials at the source and have full control over the chains of distributions. Full traceability is simply a bridge too far in jewelry today, and those companies who claim that they have achieved full traceability need to be carefully examined. Furthermore, under current condition, what is regarded as traceable jewelry does not necessarily hold the moral high ground. If, for example, you are only buying from sources in developed countries, thereby avoiding artisanal and small-scale miners, you may ensure traceability. But at the same, you are consciously rejecting contact with those producers who need our support most desperately. I believe in doing what is reasonably possible. This means that we should concentrate on transparent codes of practices, managed through appropriate and viable due diligence, by which we can ensure that, to the best of our ability, there are no negative impacts associated with the goods we sell, socially, environmentally, and economically. How can this be practically achieved? In 2018, we hosted a meeting at CIBJO Congress in Bogota, Colombia, involving representatives of RJC and the color gemstones trade, including the ICA leadership at the time. As many of you will remember, shortly before then, RJC has announced that it was planning to add silver and number of color gemstones to its code of practices. It was not easy meeting, but afterwards I pledged that CIBJO would do what it can to develop a set of tools that would enable all members of the colorstone gemstone sectors, and I emphasize all members, irrespective of size or geographic location, carry out to the due diligence necessary in a modern supply chain. At the time, we already were hard at work on CIBJO Responsible Sourcing Blue Book, which formally was approved by our board of directors in 2019. It was a departure from the norm of CIBJO, which had originally developed its Blue Book system to provide sets of harmonized standard and nomenclature for product categories such as diamond, color gemstones, pearls, precious metals, and precious coral. The Responsible Sourcing Blue Book differed from its predecessor in that it dealt with standards or practices that could be applied throughout the jewelry sector and looked mainly at the people involved in the industry and the way they behave rather than the product itself. In essence, the Responsible Sourcing Blue Book was a guidance document and not a certifiable standard like the RJC Code of Practices, but it represented a real watershed moment for the jewelry industry, because for the first time, a guide was being provided with consistent guidance and benchmarked standards of practices to that companies should use to ensure the integrity of their company practices and their supply chain. After the meeting at the CIBJO Congress in Colombia, and largely in response to it, we began work on Responsible Sourcing Toolkit. It took 2 years to develop, and we did so with the collaboration of the Color Gemstones Working Group, which is a forum of leading color gemstones and jewelry companies and gemological laboratories dedicated to helping business in the color gemstone supply chain be more sustainable and making reasonable sourcing part of the way they work. Its work is facilitated by TDI sustainability and advisory firms specializing in the jewelry, gemstones, and mining industries. We launched the Responsible Sourcing Toolkit in April 2021. It is designed to enable all members of the jewelry and gem sector to do due diligence in their supply chain in accordance with the CIBJO Responsible Sourcing Blue Book. The digital files of which the toolkit is comprised can be downloaded at no cost from a dedicated website. The toolkit comprises 9 modules, each one of which relates to a specific section of the responsible sourcing rule. Each module provides a detailed explanation of the section and also a number of downloadable files in Word and PDF format, which can be used to do the due diligence described. They include templates, forms, samples, declaration, and additional information to help the industry start the process of continuous improvement of responsible sourcing. As I said, it is available to everyone at absolutely no cost. Allow me to stress, as a matter of principle, CIBJO believes that every member of our industry should be allowed fair access to our distribution chains, on condition that they operate honestly and with integrity. We oppose the creation of artificial barriers of entry, but be they legal or commercial, and believe that these are counterproductive to our well-being. But at the same time, we do not accept the argument that because a company is small and financially restricted, it should somehow receive an exemption from conducting any due diligence on its own operation and supply chain. All of us are capable of conducting essential due diligence, and these are means like CIBJO responsible sourcing toolkit to enable you to do so. Education is the key process. It's the key element in the process. These include teaching our consumers to help them appreciate what is reasonably possible. Also self-educating ourselves. In September of this year, we launched together with Intertech Italy SPA the first ever training and certification program for sustainability officer working in the jewelry industry. Intertech is the Italian subsidiary of the Intertech Group, a multinational assurance, inspection, product testing, and certification organization. The training program, which does have a nominal cost, is offered in a series of modules on a dedicated and training platform developed by Intertech. The educational program provides professionals from the gem and jewelry industry the knowledge, insight, and practical tools necessary for applying practices related to sustainability and CSR in their own businesses. These include strategies for implementing a company's individual goals, tools for communicating sustainability initiatives worldwide, auditing techniques, and more, as well as information about laws and regulations specific to the industry. The certification is being issued by Intertech, which is accredited by Accredia, the sole national accreditational body appointed by the Italian government. Accredia is a member of IAF, or International Accreditation Forum. This means that the certification will be recognized worldwide. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we are able to do. But as a remarkably diverse business community, we will succeed as long we can rest assured that our colleagues too are doing the right thing. As I stated at the opening of my presentation, we live today in a shrunken and flattened world. It enables us to communicate and interact with one another more easily, as I am doing right now from thousands of kilometers away, but it also makes us codependent. We all rely upon each other's integrity. Before I thank you, I would like to express few considerations. Number one, the world has changed, and the world has changed dramatically, not because the COVID, or not only because the COVID. It changed because the total environment condition, and I'm not referring to the climate change only, but the entire environment conditions and all the politic activities around the world, which obviously is impacting us, is bringing us to a stage where we have to face a number of issues. And I don't want to simplify what is going on, but certainly we as an industry, more than ever, and I underline more than ever, we need to be one body together in order to give to the consumer whatever we can in the best possible way. And whatever we can could be guided by rules and regulation, transparency, honesty, and what once were called best practices. But I do not add the word principles. I add the best practices we are capable to put in place in order to bring more confidence to our industry, which, as you have been by the statistic all around the world, has been growing despite what has happened and what is happening, which obviously I don't want to go in because it's not our business. We are focused on the success of our industry, and the success of our industry is on us. I would like to wish you a successful Congress, and again, I'm sorry that I am not there physically, but I was back from Switzerland last night on purpose to be here today with you. Thank you very much, and have a great Congress.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Gaetano Cavalieri. Well, we are so lucky to have somebody with his vision. I know Gaetano for more than 20 years, and when I met him in 2000, he was already addressing many of those issues ahead of time. So that's why every time Gaetano points out direction or a concern, usually he's right ahead of time. So that's why it's so important to listen to him. For all of you here in the room, I don't know if you realize that CIBJO has been publishing the blue books, which are standards, but also recently, under the leadership of Roland Naftul, and he's a past ICA president, we produced a retailer's reference guide in very plain English, not that much science, and no clauses and regulations, but a simple guide for retailers to understand color gemstones and, of course, diamonds and pearls, and a do's and don'ts guide, which is a very simple 16-page document where retailers, wholesalers, they can see what they should do and what they should avoid. So doing the right thing in the real business with our gemstones is something that is beyond sustainability, beyond social responsibility, beyond good governance. It's also about knowing the products and knowing how to communicate and to convey them rightfully in marketing and to the public. So, Gaetano, thank you very much for your leadership, your vision, and I'm sure that everyone here in the room will have in mind the main topics of your presentation here today. So thank you very much indeed.